welcome to iBrand Daybreak. I am Perpetual Fast and Repeater. It's the first day in February, and of course, this is the right time for me to say Happy New Month to you. How are you doing? Well, if you had New Year resolutions, how far? Yeah, I want to hear that. How far? Are the resolutions still resolutioning or? Oh, come on, that was just me playing. That's incorrect English. Don't use it at home or at work. But basically, I'm excited about the fact that it's a new month. It's February, and for all the people who have New Year resolutions, I hope you're still on track. I hope you're still working out those things you said you were going to work out. And then those bad habits and all the things you have always wanted to work on, and then you look forward to 2022, you know, for that new leaf, new life, and all of those things. I hope you're beginning to have those things working for you. Again, this is iBrand Daybreak, and you know how it is on iBrand Daybreak. We're here to entertain you, to inform you, and just to make you have a wonderful morning. So we'll start with the news update. After that, we'll bring you the newspaper headlines. That's the stories making rounds on our national dailies. And from there, we have a conversation for today. You know, we are in that year where a lot of the conversations will hover around politics, who is declaring, who is not declaring, and the one who declared, and now we're hearing that he has issues with EFCC. You know, all these things, all this drama, all of that happening, we're bringing that to you this morning on the conversation for today. And after that, we've got sports and so many things for your entertainment, and of course to inform you this morning. We'll go to a very quick commercial timeout, and when we return, we'll bring you the news update and all the amazing things lined up for you this morning. Stay with us, don't go anywhere far from your television set. right, good to have you back. And this is iBrandTV. I'm not alone right about now. I've got my guest host, my colleague. I said I was going to introduce you as a guest host, and I did that. You like that, right?
Well, it's not bad. It's not bad. Let's
Okay.
put it that way. Good
Okay.
morning.
Good
You look good.
morning. Come on, what's your name?
Good morning, viewers. It's still iBrandTV. You're on to right about now, and it's time to bring you news update. Remember, I'm Samson, a lady, just as she said. Now let's take you through the news, the major headlines making news at this hour. We'll start from the home scene where, again, electoral bill transmitted to Buhari for assent. That's the National Assembly has transmitted the revised Electoral Act Amendment Bill to President Muhammadu Buhari for assent. The senior special advisor to the president on National Assembly matters, Babajide Omowarere, made this known in a statement on Monday. It said the clerk to the National Assembly, Amos Ojo, transmitted the authenticated copies of the bill. The transmission, is said, is in pursuance of Section 58, subsection 3 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and the Act's Authentication Act Cap A2LFN 2004. The transmission of the bill comes a week after both the Senate and House of Representatives made final changes to the legislation. With a revised version of the bill now sent to the President for assent, he is expected to sign the legislation within 30 days, according to the 1999 Constitution.
And still on the home front, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has detained the managing director of Medview Airline, Alhaji Munir Bankole, over alleged Hajj scam. He was reportedly detained on Monday afternoon at the headquarters of the EFCC in Jabi, Abuja. The suspect allegedly diverted 50% of funds paid to him by the National Hajj Commission and additional $900,000 for the airlift of pilgrims in 2019, which he failed to execute. The EFCC spokesman, Wilson Wojare, confirmed Bankole's detention, adding that investigation into the allegations against him was ongoing.
Now moving on to Continental Matters, the African Union said on Monday it had suspended Burkina Faso in response to the January 24th coup that ousted President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore. The bloc's 15-member Peace and Security Council said on Twitter it had voted to suspend the participation of Burkina Faso in all AU activities until the effective restoration of constitutional order in the country. The coup is the latest bout of turmoil to strike Burkina Faso, a landlocked state that has suffered chronic instability since gaining independence from France in 1960. A jihadist insurgency that spread over Mali's border has killed more than 2,000 people and forced 1.5 million to flee their homes since 2015. Diplomats say the spate of coups is expected to be a major point of discussions at the AU summit in Addis Ababa this weekend.
And now in the international scene, Britain urged Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday to step back from the brink over Ukraine, warning that an incursion would trigger sanctions against companies and people with close links to the Kremlin. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the threat of such measures, echoing moves outlined by a senior U.S. official following a Russian troop buildup near Ukraine, would amount to an attack on Russian businesses. Opponents of Putin have repeatedly called on the West to get tough on Russian money, though oligarchs and Russian officials continue to flaunt their wealth at Europe's most luxurious destinations. And that's all on the news updates at this hour. Right now, we'll bring you the newspaper headlines, but we're going to very, very short time out. And when we return, we'll bring you the newspaper headlines. Stay with us. All right, now taking us through the stories on the newspaper headlines this morning, we start with this day paper. And the banner headline here reads, Buhari, my successor will inherit homegrown economy, stable democracy, revamped security forces. And that story has a rider. It reads, Nigeria facing historic transition, says Obasanjo. Away from that, 100 for 100 policy. CBN disburses 23 billion naira to manufacturers, and we have two riders. Emefiele saying new forex policy underway, and of course we all await that. Another rider, federal government stakeholders laud Apex Bank's drive to boost economy. Another story here, this you will find on page 5, reads, NNPC positioned to lead Africa in energy transition, and that's coming from Kiari. That's on page 5, as I earlier said. We have this National Assembly transmits reworked Electoral Act Amendment Bill to Buhari for assent. And here is another one. Nigeria, UK move to deepen security, hold defense partnership dialogue in London. That's on page 6, and that's all from this day paper this morning.
Moving on now from this day paper to the Nation paper, the major headline here reads, Why APC is in crisis by Benue and Reconciliation Panel, with the rider reading, Ego Perception Fueling Division, panel with 47 petitions asks for more time. And that you can find that on the page 1. You also have I Chiefs withdraw suit to end Olubadan succession rule. That's coming on page 27, talking about the earpiece of the paper. You also have EFCC slams 2.9 billion naira fraud charges on Okorocha and others. You can find that on page 5. And ex-Imo governor Tambuwal to run for president. Peter Obi weighs options. That's on page 5 as well. You also have another story here that reads, Jam to hold UTME May 6th, I beg your pardon, to 18th. And that's talking about the JAM exam for this year. You also have OAU lecturers begin indefinite strike action. And finally, you have revenue generating agencies get 3 trillion naira targets, with the rider reading, Customs laments Financial Act effect.
And moving on to Business Day, the first story reads, 5 big companies enjoying Nigeria's low interest rate. You may want to get a copy of that paper to know more about that. And we have a rider that says, as 16 corporates raise over 300 billion naira CP in 2021. And other stories here, we have this one. This is an analysis that says why tin can port has become importers' nightmare. Another one here says, extension of petrol subsidy will dent fresh investment, and that's coming from marketers. You'll find that on page 2. And that's all from Business Day this morning.
I'll wrap up the headlines now with the Punch newspaper, where the major headline here reads, APC February Convention uncertain, Peace Panel demands extension. And that's on page 7, talking about, page 2, I beg your pardon, talking about the rider day. It has the riders. Petition still being submitted. We need 1 more week, says committee chair. APC registers 41 million members. Governor rules out convention postponement. That's Malam Buni, the caretaker chairman for the APC. On the earpiece of the paper, you have federal government probes 17 firms over breach of customers' private data, hikes fines. That's on page 21. You also have Malami to decide Electoral Act bill. National Assembly transmits documents to Buhari. That's on page 2. You also have on page 21, 243 firms jostle for CBN's multi-billionaire loan scheme. And Okorocha unveils presidential bid, knocks zoning. Ex-governor charged with 2.9 billion naira fraud. All of those stories you have on page 7. You have Senate projects 3 trillion naira revenue for agencies. Customs fault finance bill on page 21, and National Assembly threatens sanctions against MDAs over secret lopsided recruitments. That's also on page 21. To the earpiece of the paper, you have 98 suspected political thugs arrested by soldiers in Ekiti arraigned. You also have those pushing for polls without restructuring are political criminals, and that's Gani Adams speaking there on page 8. Landowner returns Unilag's Landowner, I beg your pardon, let me take that again. Landowner returns Unilag lecturers 6 million naira after Punch report. You have that on page 4. And alleged arsonists touch Obasanjo's 2,420 hectare Benue farm. Gunmen rob, beat firemen. That's on page 6. And you have EFCC detains Medview airline boss for alleged $900,000 ad fraud. That's on page 20. With human parts found with me for my ex-boss promising 30 million naira reward. That's a driver speaking on page 4 and 6. You have the story there. And finally, on the Punch paper, you have fear grips Ekiti community over influx of herdsmen, farmers deserted. There you have on page 7. And that's the major headlines making various dailies at this point in time. Which one is touching to you, really?
You know, looking at the Punch paper, it's laden with a lot of stories.
Sorry.
Some humanitarian, that's human angle, some political, and then you don't even know which one to go for. Like, I'm just looking at all the stories, but let's start from APC February convention being uncertain. I remember PDP has always, you know, conversations during elections and all that. If we say things like, oh, APC cannot hold it, they are going to probably disintegrate. So many things are going to get so many cracks in the wall, and this convention slated for February 26 may not hold. And you know, at that time, I remember during the conversations, you know, the side from APC will always say, you know, that's not true, we're going to hold it and all of that. But with this headline now, I'm wondering if that particular convention is going to hold on the 26th of February.
That's where the worry comes in, you know, the fact that there's no certain date or specific date for when they can hold their conventions. There's still internal crisis that needs to be resolved, and it's yet to be seen how the president, who is the leader of the party, goes about trying to resolve it in terms of bringing all the raglan parties
but you know, there's
together.
Something about him, to a very large extent, he tries to, you know, just...
Seems laid back, kind of. Well, again, as the president of the ruling party, he is the leader of the party. And, you know, the onus falls on him to ensure that the party is in good standing, not just in terms of unity, but also in terms of, you know, political impact and what have you. So if the internal strifes and crisis within the party, to the point it's getting to the national working community, then he needs to step in. And that's where you expect him to exhibit, you know, his leadership roles or qualities. So it's not a state thing. You know, if it was a state crisis, you would say, okay, probably the regional chairman or whatever, you should step in and see how they can, you know, weed it. But this is now at the national level. The president can't afford to be silent again. He needs to weigh in. And all of this is coming at the back of a presidential election 12 months away. February is, you know, pens down for the presidential elections next year. It's just 12 months. And within the political sphere, 12 months, a lot can happen. So they really need to put their acts in order. And it just shows you how democracy can sometimes be messy in terms of you having different, you know, dissenting opinions. Of
course, and I think zoning is also going to be an issue, really.
Well, that would be an issue. You know, again, it depends on what the party's constitution says regards zoning at this point in time. We know quite well the talks of, oh, okay, the North has ruled for 8 years. It's time for the Southwest or Southeast or South-South. So there will be issues of zoning, not just for the presidential ticket, but also for the national chairmanship of the party. And that's where we're seeing stripes right now. That several names, you know, being tossed up. Some have declared openly, but you still have issues with which zone should get the national chairmanship position, which zone should get the presidential, which zone should get the, you know, vice presidential, and all of that. I think
parties are really going to be careful about zoning. APC is going to be watching what PDP is doing. PDP is also going to be watching what APC is doing. So it's really going to be very dramatic, and it's interesting. I mean, that's what politics is about. It's just my hope that they get their acts together, all the parties involved get their acts together, and at the end of the day, I mean, we have enough time to probably go to the polls and all of those things.
There's enough time to go to the polls. You know, the concern for most APC faithfuls or members is the fact that there are several states that ran parallel congresses last year, even here in Lagos. Before, you know, Jide Adeniran decamped to the PDP, it was able to run, you know, parallel congresses across all wards, you know, and even bring up his own state chairman. So it just shows you that there's several issues that needs to be addressed. It's not just at national level for APC. Even within various state congresses, they still have issues that need to be addressed. And when it comes to the big one, the, you know, national convention for ahead of the presidential convention, you need your states and the party as a whole to be united. And that's where the president needs to come in, especially, you know, with the whole issue of the caretaker committee, Should they still be in charge? Should they get out and all of that? All of those things need to be resolved. And I'm sure the National Convention is what will resolve it. The big question is, when will it hold?
Definitely. I guess they'll get their acts together, and in the coming weeks, they said they need 1 more week, so let's see. Hopefully by that time we'll have the details. And away from that, there is this one about Obasanjo farm in Benue State. I'm wondering, they are saying these guys are indigenes. I mean, it's their land and all of that. It's government. I mean, so many controversies about who owns the land and compensation and all of that. What's your take on that issue, really?
Well, with Benue, you should understand that issue of land ownership has been from like time memorial. Remember the thief crisis of the 1930s, 20s down to 1950s. Even before, the former head of state, Yakubu Gowon, created Benue Plateau State, and you now had General Murtala Mohammed now break the states into two. So you had Benue separately, Plateau separately. There have always been issues of land ownership. So I'm not surprised it's coming up again. The whole, crisis of herdsmen and farmers in Benue has always been about land ownership. Who are the true owners of the land? That's where the question comes in. Now, for Obasanjo's farm, you would have to go through the documents to see if the land was acquired legally and, if the right processes or procedures were taken before the land was acquired. Now, if that was done, then those who are invading and causing issues wouldn't have a say. But
and then even attacking the firemen, that's the height for me.
Again, as I said, you would have to go back to probably 80 years ago, 100 years ago. You understand?
So have a clearer picture of what exactly is happening.
In Benue State, you've always had those crises, farmers being attacked, land disputes. It's been from time memorial, so to speak, prior to the creation of even Benue State itself. As I said, it was Yakubu Gowon who created Benue State. So before then, you've had the thief crisis, which was basically about land ownership, land disputes and all. I hope that this will be sorted out, not just because Obasanjo being the former president or a permanent person, but I hope the governor and all stakeholders will find a way to resolve these issues of land disputes. It's a recurring motif within
with fairness and equity.
Exactly, it's a recurring motif within the Benue social and political landscape, and it's not good enough.
Definitely. And finally, I'm trying to refrain from talking about kidnappings and rituals. It's just too much. Like, how can a driver, I mean, that story of a driver, it's something I would really like to talk about, but I guess maybe some other time, we'll dedicate time, maybe on a Thursday or so, to talk about the ritual killings, the kidnappings, and the little children. I mean, I call them little children involved in these heinous acts. It's terrible.
Well, it's terrible. It shows you that there's so much work that needs to be done, not just from a moral standpoint, but also from, the religious standpoint, among other views you want to look at it. Issues of ritual killings, kidnappings, and all of that, it stems from, the need to
now
acquire
you've started talking about it.
wealth.
We want to talk about it some other time, not now. All right, we're going to a very quick time out, and when we return, we've got more for you this morning on iBrand Daybreak. It's been Perpetua Fason Repeater and the amazing guest host, Samson Oloyede. We're still here. I don't think we're going away. We'll be right back.
Thanks for staying tuned. It's still iBrand Daybreak. Now it's time to delve into the discussion segment. The declaration of interest to contest the 2023 presidential elections in Nigeria is by the national leader of the All Progressives Congress, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has kicked off in earnest politicking for the 2023 general elections. 24 hours after the former governor of Lagos visited President Muhammadu Buhari to declare his intention to contest the presidential elections, the governor of Ebonyi State, Dave Umwai, followed suit. Chief Whip of the Senate and former governor of Abia State, Orji Uzor Kalu, as well as Orji Uzor Kalu, I beg your pardon, has also declared his interest to contest. I'll contest 2023 presidential election if PDP zones ticket to South, says Peter Obi, and you also have Lagosians rooting for Shibajo's 2023 presidential elections. In other words, the 2023 presidential elections is gaining steam. To discuss now with us is Pep, who is here with me, and we'll be looking at the ideal candidate for the president for 2023 presidential elections. Who is the ideal president that Nigeria needs at this time? Remember that for different times you have different challenges, and at this point in time, the challenges facing the nation. Who is the ideal president that we have? Pep.
Okay, now I think I like the fact that you talked about the major challenges bedeviling this nation, and I know that it was on the back of these challenges that President Muhammadu Buhari rose to power, because he promised to address the many challenges, especially insecurity, corruption, and then the economy. And this is 2022, about 7 to 8 years down the line. These issues are still there, and I dare say that some of these issues have even taken a more demonic dimension, if I might say, for lack of better word, because we would see that right now what we're really dealing with is insecurity, and now the insecurity is beginning to take a dimension that is really it's appalling. Now let's talk about security now. Okay. Apart from the insurgents, we're having household insecurities. We're having situations where young children are involved in money-making rituals. We're having situations where the principals, the proprietor of a school had to kidnap a child, a pupil, and then killed the pupil. We're having all of these things happening in our backyard. Someone you know, someone you've seen before, all of these things happening. And then you're asking, what could be the cause of all of this? And for me, when you look, I feel it has a lot to do with maybe the economy. Maybe people have tried as much as they can to make money, and they feel like, you know what, if this isn't working, maybe we should just delve into this other thing. And that tells me that the issue of insecurity and the economy is something. These two things are really something very important. And right now, we need to be looking at, okay, of these candidates that have declared interest and those who are yet to declare their interest, what pedigree do they have? What antecedent do they have? Does it look like they have the capacity to fight these battles? And I know, like, I'll keep making reference to President Muhammadu Buhari. He wrote on the fact that, you know, he was a general, or he is a general. Well, he was a general, basically.
Retired.
Retired, yeah. You know, we felt like, okay, he's a retired general. He should be able to and that was the time when Boko Haram was really a big deal. And we just wanted to nip it in the bud. And so I really feel that we have to look beyond whatever it is we looked at when we chose President Muhammadu Buhari. Okay. I don't know what you want to say about that.
Well, when you say what we looked at, what exactly did we look at? Now, I'll delve to that quickly. You talked about, you know, issue of economy being the reason behind most of these insecurity, you know,
I mean,
issues,
the grassroots insecurity we're seeing, the local ones.
Well, that's relative. Some folks will tell you that even when the economy boomed in Nigeria, you still had issues of kidnappings or ritual killings, you know, happening. So when you say the economy is a reason, it may not be entirely, you know, true in the sense that it doesn't capture it in its entirety.
Of course, not in its entirety, but I'm just looking at this household things happening. It could still be as a result
But we've had ritual killings for over 20, 30 years.
We have, but not at this alarming rate.
You think it's
alarming
now?
Yes, I believe it is alarming now. I mean, just this morning we have the story of the guy who said he's a driver. His boss promised him, I think, 30 million naira or so, reward, and then he got. I mean, we still have the issue of we still have that one that happened in
Abeokuta.
No, Ife. Okay. Yes, the owner of Oduduwa University and the whole story around it. I mean, so many things happening back to back, and I'm like, what the heck? What's happening to us?
Now let's take you know, the question you asked earlier. You talked about what we looked at towards President Muhammadu Buhari prior to his emergence his election, as the president of the nation. One of the things you talked about when you said being a former general, or a retired general rather, is that he would be more, it would be better placed to handle issues of terrorism, like Boko Haram at the time. Remember, Boko Haram at the time were making, attacking soft targets like marketplaces, even down to the capital. You had bombings at Inyanya Park in Abuja. So there were concerns that they were really closing in on the capital, and more often than not, once the capital is under siege, it's as good as the company has been, taken over. So there were concerns that one needed a general who was used to warfare and all of that to be in place. And maybe to some extent, yes, when was last time Boko Haram attacked Abuja in that sense? So maybe there's been a bit of achievement or success in that regard, that we've not had those, suicide bombings at the markets, or Abuja hasn't been under attack, but we still have terrorism, taking place in the northeast. We still have the insurgency going on, and our gallant men and women are still fighting and sometimes paying the ultimate sacrifice. Now, what do we need in 2023 in terms of the president, not just for the economy, but in terms of security, be it in terms of re-strategizing? We now have new equipment, which is good, new fighter jets and all of that. Do you think it's time to get someone who does not necessarily have to have a military background?
Now, when we talk about that, I feel the challenge in Nigeria is that we have people who somehow maybe do not have the political will to address issues. Because listening to analysts, listening to some of those people talk on television, radio, everywhere, I mean, you're listening to them, I think these things sound like things we can actually put into practice. But then the question is, why are we not putting these things into practice? I mean, in the military, we're talking about moles in the military, we're talking about sabotage, situations where, people have had, maybe our guys, the troops are having, they've had conversations on how they want to go about certain things, and before you know it, there's a sabotage, and then they are attacked, they are
ambushed.
They are ambushed. And when you look at all of that, where is this coming from? And then there are other, exactly, the corruption. I think deep down, apart from the fact that we are having insurgency, there is corruption. There are so many things in the mix. And for me, I feel we need someone who is sincere, someone who is dispassionate, somebody who is not going to, someone who is really going to be ready to do whatever it takes to liberate Nigeria. Because I feel that there are certain persons who have come into some alignment, who have come into some kind of agreement with certain people. And so when they want to take certain steps, they are reminded of how they were put in certain positions, or how that they had been part of certain arrangements and agreements. I feel that also somehow hinders our leaders from taking decisive steps, from making decisions that would change Nigeria for good. Because at the end of the day, I don't know about you, but when I look at all the problems, all the challenges, it still boils down to someone saying, you know what, I am going to follow through till the very end.
Now, you've just talked about having a president for 2023 who will be resolute in decision makings and seeing through certain reforms.
Yes, we don't just make policies and make laws and they're not being implemented.
Now, it's easy to put, everything on the president. But the truth is, that won't work if we're going to be realistic. The president cannot reform the system. I'll give you examples. The president can be vetoed by the National Assembly. So if he doesn't have a National Assembly that will work with him in terms of align with his policies and, the vision for the nation, it won't work. Again, it's democracy, it's messy, there will be disagreements, there will be compromises along the way, but it's part of the rigorous, demands that democracy places on us. When you say the president, we need a president who will be resolute, see things through. It's fine, it's beautiful. The president has limited powers, remember. The National Assembly can veto certain things, is trying to do or does. Again, it boils down to the entire system, the structure, not just the president. You look at the National Assembly, for example, we're talking about we need to, service our debts and increase our foreign reserves and all of that. We want to reduce deficits, increase surplus. If we're going to do that, for example, there will be the need to cut down on cost of governance. The National Assembly, as it stands, is it ready to cut down on cost of governance? Because 2 years ago, 125 billion naira was allocated to, the National Assembly, and there were talks that your Ministry of Health 48 billion, education I think 45 billion at the time, cumulatively was not even up to, both ministries were not up to that budgeted to the National Assembly. So if the president is coming through, is sincere, is dedicated, he really wants to, cut down on the cost of governance, is the National Assembly going to play ball?
Now, thank you, Pat. Talking about the National Assembly, let's not forget that these are our representatives. They are there to represent our various constituents and all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think it's also it's also it also hinges on the people to know their rights, to know that they have the right to demand from the National Assembly members certain things. And I think if we have a president who is really, really ready to walk the talk and do the work, I believe that the National Assembly will be left with no other option than to sit up.
Okay.
You're laughing at me, right?
No, because again, it's easy to say these things. Remember, it's politics.
I know it's
There will be
politics, but then I
selfish
want to believe that the people, I think we're not remembering that we have the people who are the citizens of Nigeria. And these people are also supposed to be part of this process.
No one is disputing. The people have the power. The people have the power to, recall elected representatives or senators who are not doing their biddings quite all right. We saw that with Senator Dino Melaye and Kogi State. We've seen all of that. But even his replacement or his successor, from that constituency, talking about Senator Smart Adeyemi, how much has he done the bidding of the people in Kogi? Again, you will raise questions. The truth is, when you say the president should, see through certain things, he can't run in isolation.
Well, he
He's
has
not a lone
ministers,
ranger.
he has a cabinet. I mean, when I say president, it's not just one person. He has the cabinet, and then he has the service chiefs, he has all of those people who are supposed to drink from his wealth, like people who are going to be running with his vision. He's going to share his vision with them. And I want to believe that if the executive is ready and willing, every other arm of government will align. The judiciary will be left with no option than to align. And then the legislative that you're talking about, I know that there are times that there are wranglings between the legislature and the president and all of that. I want to believe that to a very large extent, if we have a president who comes from a party and maybe to the National Assembly, most of the party members or a good number, the majority is from his party. I want to believe that there will be a level of synergy. There will be a level of working together. We've not seen the synergy.
We've not.
We may not have seen it so much, but of course it is still there.
Okay, take for instance the Buhari administration, 2015 to this point and 2023. You've had APC as the dominant party, both in the House of Reps and Senate. We've seen issues of some party members breaking ranks and going about their own interests. Bukola Saraki, imagine as Senate president, was breaking ranks from what the party wanted. We've seen, and this is not now, it's not just with APC. We saw Aminu Tambuwal, the current, the incumbent governor of Sokoto State, do that with PDP. When he emerged as the Speaker of the House of Representatives. We've seen all of these things play out. So what I'm saying is, it's not just about the executives or the president and his cabinet. If the legislative other arms of government are not aligned with the executive or the president.
This is where the people come in. We need to know our powers. Recall anyone.
How many are you going to recall? The process of recalling is difficult.
That's another
and tedious.
Don't worry, we're going to get there. I think we just need an awakened people.
Okay.
I mean, when we begin to rise up to the occasion and understand that there is something called inclusive governance, so we're beginning to do what we are supposed to do. Then it's just unfortunate that because of the impoverished. There's a lot to be. But when you're impoverished to a level, you want to be able to, think, and you just want to get the 5 naira, the 10 naira, the bag of rice, and be fine.
We'll
but of course,
that,
I believe that those of us who are the elites should be able to do something, educate the ones who are in the villages, and I believe that we can make Nigeria work again. The people, if we are willing, we can make Nigeria work.
It's a long road ahead.
It is, actually. All right, many thanks for staying with us. And we talked about the ideal Nigerian president. We'd like to know what you think also. You can drop your comments right here. Tell us what you think. Tell us, just let's hear your view. We're going to very quick time out now. And when we return, we've got more for you this morning on iBrand Daybreak. Stay with us. right, it's time for the social media buzz. Good to know you're still with us. Okay, this is a story that broke with a lot of people being excited and some persons, you know, being very religious and holy about it. Well, it's Rihanna getting pregnant. And now it is tagged Rihanna getting pregnant before marriage. And we have Daniel Reha saying it's not worth applauding. Daniel Reha is a Twitter personality. Okay, so I guess you have the picture up there already, so you can see it there. We have reactions. Daniel Reha saying Rihanna getting pregnant for A$AP Rocky without getting married first. On a real isn't worth applauding, celebrity or not. The right thing to do is to get married before having kids. The world has normalized baby mama and baby daddy like it's a dignifying status. God help us all. And then this one says, any lady who allows a man deliberately impregnate her before marriage doesn't know her worth. It makes absolutely no sense. If a man truly loves you, he should go pay for your bride price or walk you down the aisle before starting a family with you, because baby mama is a degrading status.
And here you have reactions. Trust Nigerians. You have Nelly Nell saying, you the advice billionaire.
Oh my gosh.
And you have the Boss Collections 1830 also saying, as in the audacity. Responding that it's the audacity. You also have the Mead Maher Babami, show us Adam and Eve's wedding certificate. Now, this is an issue that would always, you know, be personal. If you want to toe the religious line, I don't know what the Quran says for, you know, Muslim brothers and sisters, but if you want to toe the, you know, Judeo-Christian values, you know quite well that that's fornication. It's not ideal.
Of course, that's
you know.
what it is.
But there's the place of personal experiences over time, and that's something that, you know, several people would have different stances for. For some of us, it would even surprise you that our parents even had us or conceived us, or even, you know, give birth proud to marriage. Now, it's not to justify anything. Folks would definitely take decisions they think are good for them per, you know, various moments of their lives. At the end of the day, as long as they are not harming the other person, I think it should be left with them and God. As the scripture says, do not judge, so you do not be judged.
Okay,
you don't want
for
to
me,
respond
I
to
do
that?
not believe in premarital sex to even start with, let alone being pregnant before marriage. These are things that I am not in support of. And then when I see folks, brethren, who told the path of this is what the word of the Lord says and this is what we are going to follow, I'm glad. I mean, these are my brethren. I mean, we're in this together. But when I also see folks who probably look the other way and feel that, well, it's not a big deal, it's their life. And, well, it's their life and it's their decision. If it's something they can deal with, if it's something they can, you know, they can go through.
And find peace with.
Then that's fine for them. But for me, I am against it. Full, final, stop. It's a period.
Okay, that's how much we can take on today's edition of the show. It's been exciting as always, and I'm Samson Olede. Till iBrandTV comes your way again, please do have a wonderful day.
And I am Perpetual Fashion Repeater. Do have a wonderful day and happy new month once again. Bye for now.